Hello, and welcome to the latest ESHA Research webinar. My name is Megan Murphy, and I will be presenting today's webinar on menu labeling regulations and best practices for implementation. Before I discuss today's agenda, I'd like to take this time to review the history of ESHA Research. ESHA Research was established in 1981 with the goal of providing a comprehensive nutrition database. Currently, our solutions include software for food formulation, restaurant menu analysis, supplements, dine analysis, and we also have consulting services that can do label creation and regulation question support. Genesis R&D, the food analysis and labeling software, was released in 1991. Currently, Genesis can support both the new regulations that were set in 2016 for packaged goods, as well as the previous regulations, which we call 1990. It also can support product development, menu analysis, reporting features, as well as labeling for other regulations in other countries, such as Canada, Mexico, and the EU. We do have some upcoming webinars. The next webinar will highlight ESHA report with the new menu requirements and the FDA label changes for packaged goods. There is more demand now for integration of data with ingredient suppliers into Genesis. This webinar will focus on the newest version of ESHA report. We also have an upcoming webinar on added sugars, as well as top 10 Genesis R&D user tips for success. Please visit ESHA.com to review or register for the webinars. During this webinar, I will cover the overview of the regulations, which include the timeline, the specific requirements, the display requirements, and documentation. We will also do a demo at the end of food menu to help you with reporting. Please note, this webinar is being recorded. We will email a copy of the slide deck as soon as it's completed. All of our webinars, as I mentioned, are available on our website. We have archived webinars for your use, as well as you can register for upcoming webinars. Feel free to submit any questions you may have during this webinar on the GoToWebinar control panel. And as time allows, we will answer questions. So labeling provisions were set forth in the Affordable Care Act and require that restaurants and other retail food establishments provide access to nutrition information. The final guidance was published May 5th of 2016, and enforcement will begin May 5th of 2017. Establishments that are required to comply are restaurants and similar food establishments that are part of a chain of 20 or more locations that do business under the same name. This may include bakeries, chain restaurants, coffee shops, quick service restaurants, grocery stores, and vending machines. Establishments with fewer than 20 locations do not need to comply, as well as food trucks, sidewalk carts, trains and airlines, or other establishments that are not considered stationary. Any establishment may, however, voluntarily register to be covered, and you can access this form, the form FDA 3757 online, and you can email your form to the FDA. What food items are covered? Currently, restaurant-type foods that are covered are any standard menu items that are routinely included on the menu. This would include combination meals, self-service food like grab and go, food on display, salad bars, or alcoholic beverages. These are consumed on premises or consumed while walking away or soon after at another location, but is served and prepared in that establishment. Foods that are not covered or do not need to provide information would be alcohol on display behind the bar or on tap that's not on a menu or on a menu board, any custom order, daily specials, market tests that are fewer than 90 consecutive days, or temporary menu items that are on the menu fewer than a total of 60 calendar days. Calories are required on menus, menu boards, drive-thrus, and kiosks. They should be rounded. And if you have calories in the column, the type size should be no smaller than the name or price of the menu item. There are options within this guidance to combine or consolidate some of your information. For example, if you have two options of a menu item, you can list the calories and separate them by a slash. Or if there's three or more options, you can use the range and do a dash between the calories. Some examples are these, or if you have a sandwich that is grilled or fried, you can list those two options with a slash. However, if there are three or more options like grilled, baked, or fried, then you would denote this by a dash. This also works for combination meals. So in this example, you have an entree and two sides. So you can separate those and show them with a slash, or if you have three options for three sides, then you can use a dash to show those different calories. For multi-serving items, you either need to label for the entire contents of the item, or in the example of pizza, you can list per individual unit, but you must include the total numbers of units included in that menu item. So for example, you can include the calories for a specific slice of pizza if that pizza is also served in discrete units or cut into slices, and then denote how many slices are per pizza. If you have toppings on that pizza, you can also list out what the topping calories would be for each slice. Another example is an item that has multiple toppings. This would include either pizza or, for example, ice cream. You can label your base item with the calories, and in this case, we have small, medium, and large calories. And then you can list and itemize out all the toppings that you could add. So at the bottom, you see pepperoni, sausage, and green peppers listed out, and the additional calories that would be added depending on what size you're serving. For self-serve foods and foods on display, like grab and go, salad bar, or buffets, you have a few different options. You can either list the calories next to the corresponding food or include calories directly on the package. You can have a sign attached to the sneeze guard, or you can have one sign that consolidates a listing of several food items at that specific area and list them out. But it must be located where the customer can see the sign and see the information while they're choosing the item. Beverage bars must state the number of calories in the full volume of cup as served without ice at the beverage bar. So this is for self-serve beverages. If the establishment has a drive-through, calories should reflect a standard fill line with ice added. Some restaurants may need two sets of calories, one for the inside for the beverage bar that shows what the calories are for the beverages without ice, and one for the drive-through that would follow standard operational procedures with the fill to the fill line with ice included. In addition to calories, there are two statements that are required on either the menu or menu boards. The first is called the succinct statement, which is a 2,000 calorie a day statement, and it needs to be on a menu on the bottom of each page. It can be on menu boards at the bottom, but if it's a display menu board that's digital that rotates, it needs to be on every single page. For grab and go, it can be actually on the package label or on a sign that's close to the item and visible while the person is either making the choice or ordering. The statement of availability states that additional nutrition information can be available upon request. So this means if the customer comes in and asks for information above and beyond calories, this needs to be available. It would only be required on a menu on the first page only, but near the succinct statement. On menu boards, it would be on the bottom of each rotation, and on grab and go, it needs to be on the label or on a sign close to the ordering area. Drive-throughs have same requirements as menu boards. The beverages must state the number of calories of how it's ordinarily dispensed in the drive-through, like mentioned before. And the succinct statement and statement of availability is required and needs to be visible while the person is ordering. The additional information, or what's called written information, must include the nutrients that are currently required in the nutrition facts label on packaged foods, but not vitamins and minerals. So in this view, you can see that what's required is calories down to protein. So if a customer comes into the restaurant and requests additional nutrition information, this must be available and up to date and provided to the customer in the restaurant. The format can include posters, tray liners, counter guides, signs, handouts, and booklets, or it can be provided digitally through a computer or a kiosk. However, the restaurant cannot direct the customer to the internet on their own time. This information must be available in restaurant at the time that the customer asks. It also needs to be up to date and match the calories on the menu boards. How do you deal with changes to menu items? Some things change very often, whether it's a menu item or an ingredient supplier. The guidance documents say that the requirements are to provide accurate and timely information. It goes on to state that if calories and other information is not accurate, the food will be considered misbranded. The documents recommend to update the menu board or contact the FDA during certain circumstances, or use a temporary solution, such as the packaged goods, to update the information. As we know, there is a lot of change in the industry. In the next few slides, we'll highlight some of the differences and comparisons with the new nutrition facts label updates, which were both set forth at different times. The Affordable Care Act, or menu labeling, as we mentioned, will be enforced starting May 5th, 2017, which is for restaurants, grocery stores, or food establishments with 20 or more locations, and must provide calorie declarations for all standard items. The nutrition facts label is for packaged goods and will be effective July 26, 2018 for all manufacturers that have more than $10 million in annual sales. Manufacturers with less than $10 million in annual sales have until July 26, 2019. At that time, they must convert from the 1990 NLEA label to the 2016 label. This chart shows side by side some of the differences. And as you can see, the check mark shows required nutrients. The Affordable Care Act, or menu labeling, requires calories, calories from fat, and so on. But the 2016 NLEA does not require calories from fat any longer. On the next slide, we can see that the NLEA for 2016 requires vitamins and minerals, but there have been some changes to what vitamins and minerals are required. The Affordable Care Act does not require vitamins or minerals under protein, but does require sodium. For the 2016 NLEA, the serving size is determined by the rack, and there has been updates to the rack sizes to reflect modern portion sizes. For the Affordable Care Act, nutrition information is determined by the size of the item as it's normally prepared and offered for sale, and not according to the rack. Upon request, The FDA can request information from the food establishment, and the information must come from two different sources. It must come from the on-site restaurant establishment and from corporate headquarters. Corporate headquarters would need to provide a detailed description of how they determine net nutrition information. So providing the recipe, the software they used, lab data if used, and a statement certifying that the information is complete and accurate to what was provided in store or in restaurant. At the same time, the actual restaurant will have to show and provide the method of preparation. It must show that they have the additional nutrition information on hand, as well as a statement that certifies that the method of preparation was in the manner to provide the nutrients in the additional nutrition information. So it's of utmost importance to make sure documentation is in check and on hand. To determine nutrition content, the FDA allows nutrition databases, and as you create recipes, be sure to write down the name of the software, the version of the database, and the person who is creating that information. Genesis has a way in the notes section that you could put a date, the reason for change, and write down the name of the person who made that change, so you have a running tally of all the changes that were made. You also can use laboratory analysis, nutrition facts label, cookbooks, and other regional means, but make sure you have everything collected and in order in the event that the FDA asks for more information. Genesis also has a tool that can help with compliance. The food menu and food menu report can be used to create a report that displays the calories and the mandated nutrients for the written information. You can also use it to keep track of the prices, allergens, and ingredient statements if you need to. So at this time, I'm going to switch to Genesis and open Genesis and do a demo of the food menu. So this demonstration will assume that you have a basic understanding of how to use Genesis, so how to create ingredients and recipes. And the food menu and food menu report, as mentioned, was built with restaurants and reporting needs in mind. So what you would need to do is you can go to either New Food Menu or File, New Food Menu to start your food menu. The first field that is available to you is the name field, and this is a required field, and you can see that's denoted by the asterisk next to the name. So I'm going to call this New Food Menu. Then you have other optional fields that you can use, just like if you're in a recipe or an ingredient, such as user code, groups, and notes. I'm going to click OK. While you use food menu, you can either add all your recipe items or you can separate them into categories to help with organization and sending your reports. The default category is unassigned, but if you'd like to add a category, you can either go to this button up here to click Add Category, or while you're in the field here, right-click, click Add Category, and it will add another category and number, so on. If you want to change the number of the category, highlight that category, right-click, and go down to Modify Item. In this example, I'm going to type in entrees. The next category, I'm going to right-click, modify, and type in beverages. Once your categories are created, you can start adding your items to your food menu. If you want to add an item to a specific food menu, you would want to highlight that food menu. So I'm going to go into search, and the search feature is much like when you're searching for ingredients. You can either add in a database ingredient, as you can see with this lighter green color, or a user-created ingredient, as seen with this darker green color, or a previously created recipe. I will highlight on that recipe and click select. Now, when your items are added, they're added in their standard size as they were created. So in this case, the recipe was created and one serving was given a weight. If you want to change that, for example, if I wanted to have this be a half sandwich for a combination meal that I have, you can right click on it, modify item, and I could change this to half a serving. I can also put in a price, which will see in your reports. This price is not associated with any cost in recipes. This price is specific for this food menu. You can also type in any comments that you would be able to later see in reports. Click OK. Now I'm going to add another item. This time I'll have the unassigned category highlighted, and I will search for another item to add to my menu. And again, it's added in the standard measure. If I'd like to, for example, this is milk, if I want to add it to my beverage category, I can just highlight it and drag it down. And now I can see that I have a sandwich under my entrees and milk in beverages. You can also change the view to these columns like you would do for a recipe if you right-click and go down to display columns. In this view, I can see that item name, quantity, and so on is checked. And if I wanted to change any of these, I could do so here. I could also add in nutrients that I could see in this view as well. So if you go to edit here, I'm going to add calories and calories from fat. Click OK and click OK. Now I see unrounded nutrient values for calories and calories from fat. So at this time, I'm going to go to a food menu that I've already created so that we can look at the food menu report. What I would do is go to File, Open, Food Menu Report. I'll choose a food menu I would like to look at. My previously created food menu has entrees, side dishes, beverages, and a kids menu. Again, this is for organizational purposes if you portion out your menu in a certain way. You can also click this box at the top next to categories to hide the categories and just see a listing of what's on the menu. Click on Food Menu Report, and now you can see what the report features are. So the default here is showing label nutrients only. So in this case, you will see calories as well as all the required nutrients that are in this lineup and required for your in-store additional nutrient information purposes. You can also click on the box for price, and you can see the listing of prices here. If you click on the box for allergens, you can add this to report and show via checkbox which items have a designated allergen. If you would rather see the listing of your allergen, you could also click the box that says allergen statement up here at the top and see if any of these recipes or any of these items have been assigned an allergen. If any of your recipes or items have an ingredient statement, you can check this box and you can see the ingredient statement for your items. Item comments would be that field. We'll go back to this chicken example, where if you put in comments here and we say grilled chicken marinated in ESHA's vinaigrette dressing, if we go back to food menu report, we can see the comments here. Last, you could see characteristics. So another way to identify your menu or identify items on your menu, you can use characteristics. And in this case, if any of your items were assigned a group we're going to open up this recipe for grilled chicken sandwich and show you where those are. If you go to groups and go to characteristics, these are preloaded fields. You can assign any of these characteristics, dairy-free, gluten-free, and so on, to your menu item. Once you do that, then it can appear in characteristics. At this time, you can then export your report depending on what you've chosen for your item. You can also uncheck this box and have visibility to any other nutrients that you would like to see in your food menu report. You can right-click and export your recipe to a text file. You can right-click, export your report to clipboard, and copy and paste, for example, in another place like Excel. Or you can go up to File, print to PDF, or in this case, I'll print preview, and you can see the report and save it as a PDF. You can also export your food menu if you would like to also share the unrounded nutrition or any of the information on this page, including ESHA codes and so on. Again, if you right-click and scroll down to export report, then you can choose the specific sections that you would like to include in the report, either to a text file or clipboard. And this would include the food menu info would be the name of your food menu. The food menu list would be the list of your ingredients and recipes, groups, and so on. You can also, again, like your food menu report, choose print preview or print to PDF to be able to see your report and save it. This ends the demo of food menu. If you have any questions, please submit the questions to us and we can assist you in the best way we can. I'm going to go back to our presentation and highlight some upcoming training sessions that we have. After this, we'll go to questions. We have an advanced Genesis workshop coming up in April in Washington, D.C., and we have 2 upcoming Genesis professional trainings. One is Canadian specific, and it's going to be in Toronto, Ontario. On May 18th and 19th in Chicago, Illinois, we're going to host a professional with a menu labeling training focus. So this training will cover ingredient creation and menu building with complying with the FDA Menu Labeling regulations. For more information, you can either email training@esha.com or go to our website, esha.com, and go to the training session and sign up for any of these training sessions. At this time, I'd like to check in with my colleague Liz to see if we have any questions.
Hi, Megan. Yes, we do have some questions, actually. First question we have is, does this mean I have to have 2 different calorie declarations for my beverages if I have a drive-through? And the answer is yes.
Yes.
That was one of those. Go ahead.
Yep. So as mentioned in the presentation, if you had an operational procedure that you would serve beverages in the drive-through, you would have a specific calorie setting for your fill with ice. But if you had in the same establishment an indoor section that had a self-service station, then you would need to have a sign at that station that would show the calories for the beverage with to the fill line and no ice.
Okay. The next question we have is, can I go to the new 2016 label for the additional nutrients if I'm ready to go?
Well, the ruling states that the written nutrition information must include the 1990 Nutrition Facts label nutrients. So although we know that some establishments may be in 2 different regulation buckets, they may be grocery stores and have packaged foods, but also have a restaurant on site, because the regulations are different, for menu labeling, you must keep with the 1990. And the reason why is because the new regulations for 2016 do not require calories from fat, but the menu board labeling regulations still require calories for fat. So you want to make sure that you're compliant with the regulation that you are following.
Great. We have one question that states, on the menu board, we have build your own. Do you need to provide calories for the individual ingredients? For example, onions, slices of cheese, lettuce, etc.
What you would do is if you have a price and you have a base item in your building, you could list out the calories for your base item. However, it is important to make sure that this would be one of the topping examples, so that you would need to list out the calories for all these items that would go on your specific item.
Okay. Then we have another one here that says, for example, what are the serving sizes for menu boards? Example, like an 8-piece of chicken, maybe rotisserie or something like that.
So what you would do, so again, as was mentioned, that the menu labeling do not have the rack, and you don't need to follow the rack, but you want to make sure that you're providing the amount as served. So for example, if you're serving chicken wings, what you would do is you could say calories, 1 wing, calories. So you don't necessarily have to have a serving amount, but it's what the identifiable serving is.
Excellent. So another question we have here is the 80-20 rule. Does that apply here? What if my calories change?
That is a really good question. So the guidance and the regulations that follow menu labeling does state that the 80-20 rule only applies to packaged goods. So, and as mentioned, that in the guidance documents, that if the menu information has changed, if your recipe has changed, the FDA is stating that the menu boards have to be updated, and you cannot apply the 80-20 rule.
So another question we have is, what if we have vendors who supply product to us that are exempt from the rule and they do not provide nutritional information to us? Is it our responsibility to get that data for labeling?
That is a really good question, and we've heard that before, because even though they're not required per their specific regulations, your establishment would be required. So depending on how your organization is, you need to determine a way to find that information, whether you go back to ask the supplier for that information or find a way to determine that information, but you would be responsible for having that information.
Okay, another question here is, let's see here. It says, are schools are they exempt from menu labeling rule?
That is a good question. We may do a little bit more research like that or on that, because the schools are under USDA regulations and not necessarily retail establishments. But we can look into that and provide a better statement on that one.
Okay, and then let's see what else we have here. Let's see here. We have party trays that are not on our menu boards, but we have a booklet. Do you have to provide calories on the booklet?
If that booklet is used to make orders, and if there are prices on that booklet, then you would need to determine you would need to list calories on that booklet, because the consumer is choosing options and making purchases based on that booklet.
All righty. Let's see here. We have another one. Are the calories based on the net weight or recipe weight?
So calories would be based on your final serving weight of what you've determined in your recipe. So the way it could be looked at is if you, depending on how you've provided and built your recipe, it would be the total weight of your finished recipe.
Excellent. We have one question here that says, if our company has stores and food trucks, does this apply to the food trucks?
That is another good question. We may want to look into that a little bit more to make sure, because if you are, the regulations state that food trucks are not stationary and are not required, but if your company has more than 20 locations, it may be under the umbrella. So that may be something to look into a little bit more, and we can follow up on that one.
Excellent. So I think we have time for another couple of questions here. So the calories we receive do not include frying. So he's saying, you know, they have items that maybe are cooked for chicken wings that are flash frozen, and the vendor provides the calories for the wings. However, we also cook our wings in a fryer, so the calories we receive don't have the frying factor into it.
That is a good question, because what's required is your item as prepared. So you could either do lab analysis, which would be a good way to determine what your final recipe information would be. Or I'm going to switch back to Genesis really quickly. And you could use Genesis to, let's open up, we'll just do a quick demonstration. You could use Genesis to help you make that determination. So for example, Genesis has database information. In this case, we have chicken breast fried skinless, and at different stages of preparation. So if you had a final weight for a chicken breast fried skinless, you could choose this item and put in the weight. However, if your item came in raw and boneless, you could highlight this setting, click select, and enter in the amount that it was or what the weight was. I'll just put in one each. And Genesis would make that conversion for you and calculate it as cooked, and it would apply yield factors and cooking factors to show that final information. So it either would be, your method would be either to lab analysis or to use a database to help you come to that final nutrition information.
Okay, we have another question here that says, items are sold behind the deli counter and we will not need calorie counts. However, if you sell deli meats package, sliced ham, or cheese in a cold case in front of the deli, do those items need calorie counts?
So that may depend. If you are selling bulk items would not be required to have calorie counts. Just have to make sure that you're not also, if it's prepackaged, you may have to follow the regulations for the NLEA, but if it's a bulk item coming from your deli, then you would not need to list calories for that.
But if they had an item that was in their cold case that was, you know, a smaller amount, then that might be different, right? Sliced ham or cheese in a cold case for maybe packaged on-the-go items. I think that's what the question is asking.
Okay. Yes, in that case, it would be considered grab and go.
So then that would apply. So I think the question up above that I might have missed was if there's an 8-piece bucket of fried chicken and then you have to, and it serves 4 people, what do you use as the calorie count?
So what you could do is use the pizza example and do 1 piece is, for example, 200 calories, and then you could put a comma, 8 pieces.
Right.
That would be one example.
All right. Let's see if we have any others here. Let's see, what if suppliers only give us rounded data? Are we responsible for getting 100-gram data?
Okay. So the best data, the more accurate data, is 100-gram unrounded. But we know in some cases that you're either getting a nutrition fact panel and other means that may not be unrounded. So you could use that information, but just make sure you document and that your organization has made a decision on what your organization will move forward with the data.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have for questions, unfortunately.
Great. Thank you so much, Liz. And
No
thank
problem.
you everyone for joining us today. We will, like I said, we will follow up with a slide deck, and a recording of the webinar will be available on ESHA.com in the webinar section. And on this slide, you can contact us if you have any questions, and then access any of these helpful resources. Thank you so much and have a good day.